During the Cold War, military engineers faced a problem that sounds mundane, but carried enormous consequences. Timber structures were still essential for radar stations, listening posts, supply depots, and temporary housing, often built in remote, wet, or frozen terrain. These buildings were expected to stand for decades, with minimal maintenance, yet traditional wood construction kept failing at the same point it always had. The base of the timber rotted. Paint, preservatives, and heavier beams did not solve it. What finally worked was not a stronger chemical or a harder wood, but a silent design trick that denied rot the one thing it cannot live without. That trick was not advertised, patented, or celebrated, but it remains one of the most effective timber preservation methods ever deployed at scale. Military engineers identified moisture transfer, not rain, as the true enemy. By the mid-20th century, engineers understood that most timber rot did not begin with rain-soaking exposed wood. It began underground, where moisture moved invisibly upward through capillary action. When timber posts were set directly into soil or concrete, water travelled up through the fibres, keeping the wood permanently damp at ground level. This created the perfect environment for fungi, even in cold climates. Cold War construction manuals increasingly emphasized one principle above all others. Wood must never touch wet ground, and it must never be sealed in a way that traps moisture. The solution was deceptively simple, but it required abandoning centuries of habit. The timber was separated from the ground using a deliberate air and drainage break. Instead of embedding posts directly into soil or concrete, Cold War builders introduced a separation zone. Timber posts were set on compacted gravel pads or concrete piers, but never in direct contact with them. Between the wood and the support surface, engineers placed a moisture barrier made from bitumen-soaked felt or tar-impregnated paper. This layer did not act as waterproofing in the modern sense. Instead, it acted as a capillary break. Moisture moving upward through soil or concrete stopped at the barrier and, dissipated into air rather than entering the timber. Just as important, the timber base was left exposed on all sides so air could circulate freely. This meant that even if water reached the base of the structure, it could evaporate quickly. Rot organisms simply cannot survive repeated drying cycles. This single design change dramatically extended the life of wooden structures in harsh environments. The barrier worked because it controlled drying, not sealing. One reason this trick outperformed chemical treatments is that it did not attempt to poison fungi or waterproof the wood completely. Instead, it ensured that the timber could always dry. Cold War engineers avoided wrapping timber tightly in plastic or sealing it inside concrete sleeves. Those methods, you see, trapped moisture and accelerated decay. The bitumen felt barrier was placed only at the interface point, not along the entire post. Above it, the timber remained bare, or, just lightly treated, allowing moisture to escape. Below it, drainage layers carried water away. This balance between protection and breathability is why structures built this way often outlast those treated with far more aggressive preservatives. Another subtle detail was elevation. Timber bases were raised several inches above surrounding grade, and sometimes even more in wet or snowy regions. This prevented splashback, snow accumulation, and soil contact. It also allowed inspection. Rot rarely goes unnoticed when the base of a post is visible and dry. For modern builders and survivalists, this lesson is immediately applicable. Fence posts, shed supports and off-grid cabins fail most often at ground contact. Raising timber off the ground and introducing a simple capillary break can honestly extend service life by decades without chemicals. The trick spread quietly because it solved a logistics problem. Cold War installations were often remote and, politically sensitive. Replacing rotten structures was costly and risky. Engineers needed solutions that worked passively, without maintenance schedules or specialized materials. Gravel, felt, air gaps and elevation met those requirements perfectly. This is why the method became standard practice in military construction, while remaining largely invisible to civilian builders, who continued to rely on embedded posts and surface coatings. The same principle was used in Arctic and tropical environments. What makes this trick remarkable is its consistency across climates. In Arctic regions, it prevented freeze-thaw moisture cycling inside timber. In tropical zones, it reduced constant fungal exposure. The physics remained the same. Dry wood survives. Permanently damp wood does not. Modern science, confirms what those Cold War engineers observed empirically. Rot, it really requires sustained moisture content above a certain critical threshold, and by breaking those moisture pathways and encouraging airflow, that threshold just isn't reached. To apply this Cold War method today, it actually requires restraint, not complexity. First, begin by eliminating direct wood-to-ground contact. Use gravel beds for drainage. Then introduce a thin, durable moisture barrier at support points. Make sure to raise the timber above grade and ensure air can move freely around the base. And importantly, avoid sealing wood inside impermeable sleeves. These steps are simple, but they run counter to many modern shortcuts. The Cold War method worked because it respected how water behaves, not because it relied on advanced materials. This forgotten detail explains why some wooden structures quietly refuse to rot. If you encounter a wooden building from the mid-20th century that still stands solid despite harsh exposure, there is a strong chance this trick was used. It left no visible signature, no dramatic treatment marks, only absence of decay. That silence is its legacy. If this exploration of Cold War engineering and timber preservation added real value to your understanding of durable construction, subscribe to In the Beginning, share this episode with fellow history and survival enthusiasts, and help keep proven knowledge alive where it belongs.